saw victory for the Castro revolutionists as President Batista fled the country. Mob violence in Havana erupted volcanically as the news spread, and some semblance of order was not restored until the Castro forces entered the capital the next day. Hero or villain? At year's end, historians are divided on Fidel Castro. From the forbidden holy city of Lhasa in Tibet came the story of the epic escape of the Dalai Lama from Red Chinese invaders. Alerted to a Chinese plot to abduct him to Beiping, the spiritual leader of 3 million Tibetans crossed the high Himalayas to take asylum in India. Safe in India, he is welcomed by Prime Minister Nehru, who came to offer refuge. India herself faces a mounting Red Chinese threat. They have invaded her northern provinces and made territorial demands that Free India has rejected. 1960 will be her year of crisis. Social event of the season in North America was the visit of Queen Elizabeth. Here to join President Eisenhower for the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway, the Queen was feted in Canadian cities from coast to coast. But the social whirl was secondary to the main event, the dedication of the two-nation project that enabled ocean-going ships to dock at Chicago and other inland ports. That two great countries live and work together in such harmony is an inspiration to all nations. Communism put its best foot forward as the Soviet exhibition opened in New York. President Eisenhower viewed the exhibit along with Deputy Premier Kozlov. Emphasis was on the Red Rocket program and heavy machinery. Her missiles and rockets starred, for this is one area where the Reds felt safe to brag. Also on display was a model of the Lenin, an atomic-powered icebreaker. The Stars and Stripes flew at half-mast in national mourning for John Foster Dulles. For 6 years, the maker and shaper of America's foreign policy, and throughout his lifetime, a courageous champion of freedom and world peace. John Foster Dulles went to his final resting place with the highest honors his nation could bestow. Hawaii, fusion of the Orient and the West, made it 50 in '59 as she became a state. It was a popular movement. Vice President Nixon traveled to Moscow to open the United States exhibit that attracted crushing throngs of Russians anxious to get a glimpse of life in America. It was the occasion, too, for the now historic interchange between Khrushchev and Nixon before the tape cameras and a TV exhibit. Seemingly always on the defensive when discussing the divergent economies of the two countries, Khrushchev said that in 7 years the Soviets would overtake America and then wave bye-bye. He went on to castigate capitalism, saying to the vice president, "I am a communist spokesman dealing with a capitalist lawyer."
All that I can say from the way you talk and the way you dominate the conversation, you would have made a good lawyer yourself.
A week later, Khrushchev accepted an invitation to visit the USA. The frontiers of space were pushed back when the Russians launched a successful moon rocket, as shown in these simulated scenes. Tracked by monitoring stations on its trip of more than 250,000 miles, weighing nearly 1,000 pounds, the payload hit the target on schedule, fulfilling an age-old dream of mankind. moonshot coincided with the unprecedented visit of Premier Khrushchev to the United States and his greeting by the President.
I most sincerely hope that as you come to see and believe these truths about our people, there will develop an improved basis on which we can together consider the problems that divide us. After all, our common purpose should be, as always, a just, universal, and enduring peace. It is in this spirit, Mr. Chairman, that I greet you and welcome you to Washington and to the United States.
Khrushchev, in replying to the President, said he wanted to learn about life among the American people and cited the wartime friendship of the two nations. His extended tour of the nation was marked by polite but cool crowds. The super salesman of communism raised more curiosity than enthusiasm. He was like some distant relative on a visit. It was nice of him to come. Khrushchev was received by the President at the White House before he left on his tour and presented a replica of the moon rocket to Mr. Eisenhower. The hope was that his visit, coupled with the President's trip to Moscow, would bring the countries closer together. A quarter of a century ago, Mussolini's fascists were on the march. The sawdust Caesar trained children in the grim game of war. He ended in ignominy. Hitler came to power in Germany and was to plunge the world into the ghastliest war man has ever known, a war whose effects are still reverberating. After 13 years of the noble experiment, America celebrated the new year with repeal, and the rush at the OACs was on. Though some found it hard to believe the whole thing legal. The stock market was down, and so were skirts. The United States and President Roosevelt fought a depression. 1934 saw the beginning of social reforms affecting our lives today, just as 1959's historic patterns will shape the way of life for future generations.